kanya, hindi ko na kailangan i-click yung run my code. Automatically, it updates the view. And of course, yung books, Apple Books. Ito, meron mga sample books na dito na libre naman almost lahat ng Apple Books about Swift. Nagawa ni Apple, hindi yung mga gawa ng ibang authors. Pero the Swift programming language, Swift 5.5 edition na tayo, intro to do app development using Swift and more. So yan, ito lang bago tayo mag-end, setting expectations. Kasi nga, ngayon pa lang i-announce na pwede na tayo gumawa ng apps raw sa iPad na pwedeng i-release from the app iPad Swift Playgrounds to the App Store straight using Swift Playgrounds 4. Pero hindi natin alam kung how complicated of an app we can do, right? Ano yung limitations natin? Hindi natin alam eh. So, let's be surprised na lang within the year. And if really fully fledged app siya, that would be exciting. Here naman, iPad compatibility for Swift Playgrounds. Hindi lahat ng iPad compatible sa Swift Playgrounds. The first time na naging compatible yung iPad, yung Swift Playground was in iPad Pro, the first iPad Pro, and then so on. And if mas luma na yung iPad nyo, baka mas mabagal na siya mag-respond. So, I think the best way to say it, yung pinaka-basic ni Apple ngayon na release or last year, okay pa yung Swift Playgrounds doon. Ngayon, app developed via the iPad is focused on Swift UI. So you can use UI kit, okay? Pero based sa in-announce nila, binention lang nila ay Swift UI. So let's try to like set an expectations na malaking chance na hindi pa siya solid. Siguro give it a year or two bago talaga tayo maka like keep on pushing apps straight from the iPad. So ayun, and may question ba muna bago ako mag-move to the next? Claire, may gusto bang magtanong muna bago mag-ano?
Hi, Miss Ang.
Yes.
Yes, good morning. Yeah, I guess most of the questions here naman ay nasagot na. It's more on the compatibility, anong iOS ang pwede natin gamitin, anong software, and also if this is free, no? So, yep, mostly nasagot na natin. But since we are managing our time, so maybe you could answer na lang the questions in our chat box later, no?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So mag-move na ako to the next. If that's the case, thank you. I will do that. Okay. So thank you sa lahat. I'll actually be planning to announce something. I think last time na sa Y4IT ako, I think one of the concern there was not everybody has a MacBook, so they can really learn iOS development. It's really hard. Coming like anytime this month, I might announce something that yung gusto talaga maging iOS developer but they don't have the tools to develop like yung Mac and stuff. I might do something in short, I'm looking for people na talagang dedicated to and I will help them become iOS developers. So announcement na lang diyan sa either sa Twitter ko or sa invites mako-post ako. And then, actually, that's about it. If you want to learn iOS development, if you want to learn, Apple development as a whole, join communities like FlipPH, WDC community, Women of Code Manila, right? And if you're actually into like sharing your knowledge and everything, you can let me know and I will add it at invites. So yun, thank you, Claire. And yung mga questions sa chat, sasagutin ko kayo para yung next speaker na. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Miss Michi Ang. Thank you.
Okay.
So yun, as mentioned by Miss Michi Ang, she will answer your questions one by one later, okay, throughout the day. But now...
Before and after.
All right, thank you very much. But now, we'll move on to our next speaker. Now we have the founder and CEO of DynaQuest Technology Services, Inc., an award-winning provider of innovative blockchain solutions. His passion is creating digital solutions that are inclusive and sustainable for the economic development of communities that are underserved, left behind, or forgotten. Please welcome Mr. Randy Knudsen.
Thank you very much. I just get my screen up here. There we go. Well, good morning, everyone. This is a very exciting time for IT. I can't think of a more exciting time to be involved in the IT world with all the transformational technologies that are out there. We touched on a little bit of the cloud computing and AI and big data. And one of the areas of technology for me that's the most exciting and transformational is blockchain. And the revolution has already started. Some of you, I'm sure most of you have heard about Bitcoin along the way over the last several years. Some of you may even have created a digital wallet along the way, being curious. And a few may be even doing some mining of crypto, or lately excited to play in Axie Infinity, the play to pay set of NFT games that have been taking industry by storm. But recently, last week, Bank of America published a global research report. It was a 140-page report that established and launched their digital asset division. And it'll now become an asset that's over $2 trillion globally that has been too large to ignore. And it's really an area of disruption that they describe in terms of a chance to disrupt finance and technology, supply chains, social media, and gaming, as we're starting to see going on right now. And so what do these all have in common? They all run on blockchain technology. And so I think one of the most disruptive technologies today is in the blockchain space. And so we're going to take the next 20 minutes to really explore what blockchain is, the benefits that it brings, and take a look at some real world cases around blockchain and why everybody's getting so excited. My name again is Randy Knutson. I'm the founder and CEO of DynaQuest Technology Services, and we provide impact technologies such as blockchain. So let's get started first with just a short history of blockchain. If you go back to 2008 and 2009, where it all began with the publication of the white paper by Satoshi Nakamoto, who's yet to be identified as a person or a group of persons, that described Bitcoin as a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. And that started the journey. And Bitcoin required a new infrastructure to be able to handle what was called the double spend problem, which is how do you prevent a token from being spent twice in the system? And that's how blockchain was developed, is really to support Bitcoin as it first came out at that point. But the one thing you should remember throughout this presentation and going forward is really Bitcoin is not blockchain. Blockchain is the underlying technology, and Bitcoin is really the application. So think of blockchain as kind of the operating system, whether it's iOS or Android on your phone, and Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are really an application that sit on top of that. So that's the first thing you need to understand, to be clear. Even though they have the same history and started together, they're separate. And so that in 2009, the paper was published, and Bitcoins started to become available and created in that process. And actually the first Bitcoin purchase was made on May 22nd, 2010. And that was done through a gentleman in Florida in the US, and proceeded to buy the world's most expensive pizza. At that time, he bought 2 pizzas, which I hope tasted real good, because he used 10,000 Bitcoins at the time to buy those pizzas. So in today's dollars, in terms of this morning, that would be worth 570 million US dollars. So I hope he enjoyed those pizza. So May 22nd has been forever called the Bitcoin Pizza Day as well. And things have progressed over the recent years to the point now where certainly dominating the headlines has really been in the NFT space. And we'll touch a little bit about that later on in the presentation. Some of you may have heard of Top Shot and Axie Infinity, certainly CryptoKitties, and weird whales. It's a real crazy crazy environment that's around this space. So we'll touch on a little bit more in terms of the benefits after we first describe what blockchain really is. So blockchain can be described as a decentralized distributed digital ledger. It's really that simple. And there's certainly sophisticated technology that's underneath in terms of the blockchain, how a block gets written, how it gets cryptography that's involved with it. But in the simplest form, it's just a distributed digital ledger that just records an individual transaction. And that transaction could be the movement of a cryptocurrency, whether it be Bitcoin, Ethereum, or any of the other cryptos. It could be the ownership of an NFT, or it could be the use of smart contracts in the decentralized finance. And so it just records the transactions, which is really quite simple and basic. And how it really works is just, again, a simple process where a request goes out to a peer-to-peer network of thousands of computers to request a transaction be written. And these computers then look at the transaction, validate the transaction to make sure that it's a good transaction, and they then generate consensus and then authorize that to be written and create a new block. And that process of creating the new block, the cryptography is involved to create a hash or a digital fingerprint that connects that block to the previous blocks. So the data is linked together and is permanently recorded, and that's where the name comes from. Is blockchain is that just records a block of a data at a time. But again, the key understanding is it's permanent and it can't be changed. So that's how the block actually gets written on the blockchain. So what are the basic benefits of the blockchain technology? It really centers around several areas in terms of transparency, the ability to see the data that's written on the blockchain, security in terms of it's stored in an encrypted fashion, so it's permanent as well, so it can't be changed or tampered with. Efficiencies can be gained in terms of the use of other applications such as smart contracts or decentralized apps, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and certainly builds trust. Really, the key thing of the blockchain is really it builds a network of trust and a peer-to-peer trust, which is really fundamentally different from the centralized models that we'll talk about. So that'll be a theme that you'll hear come up more and more in the other business use cases, this secure, trusted element. So why is that important? It really, again, creates a new architecture for businesses, decentralized and secure. And so that's really what has gotten business so excited that, as it turns out, what makes solving the Bitcoin double spend issue actually can solve a lot of other problems for business. And the fact when you add in decentralized applications and smart contracts really provides a powerful platform to transform businesses. And we'll talk about that in some of the use cases coming up. So before we get into the use cases, let me just talk about those key fundamental building blocks of smart contracts and DApps. Smart contract is really just a self-executing contract, a piece of code that sits across on the blockchain network. And so it's decentralized, it's distributed across all nodes. And this contract is really looking for kind of a if-then event to occur. And so think about it as terms of a regular conventional contract, whether that be for business or buying real estate or some agreement. And it's just codified that's sitting out there ready to execute. And so that becomes a really a powerful tool when taking a look at how this can change business. And we'll see again in a couple of examples that we'll cover up following this. The other key building block is really known as decentralized applications. And just as we talk about smart contracts being distributed across the environment, DApps are also distributed across the environment. So it's the kind of the back end code to be able to run applications. And in the traditional model, you see that There's a centrally managed, where you go back to a data center or a central host for the applications to interact with. The DApps have the ability to interact independently on their own in this decentralized environment. So it's, again, a key concept. It's just the decentralized environment fundamentally changes how business can approach new problems with this new architecture. So what can you do with blockchains? You can do a lot of different things, and we'll get through the examples that I think will make it a little bit more clear. Certainly, we talked about the security and the nature of it being recorded on the blockchain. It solved the issues in terms of the Bitcoin of recording time transactions and the like. So it's really allows for the automation through DApps and as well as smart contracts. And certainly, it's not going to eliminate a lot of things, or it's not a one size fits all type of solution. It certainly can fit in many situations, as we'll see in our examples. But it's not an end all to everything. So let's take a look at some of the examples in the case studies of blockchain uses across various industries to help you better understand what the potential uses and benefits can be. Let's take a look at blockchain and banking. And this is a company called R3, and they have a platform that's called Corda, and they specifically deal with a variety of different banking issues and payments, in particular, the transfer of money both from a business to business and a business to consumer environment. And they can cover identity, KYC processes, and commodity buyers and sellers. There's a lot of things that they can do from that regard. And so that's a platform that's in use today and helps the banks become more efficient and help drive down costs, reduce risk along the way, and especially in banking and insurance, very intensive paper processes involved. As just alluded to, insurance is another area as well. IBM has its Hyperledger platform that it works with. IBM works with about 95% of the world's top insurers on their platforms, and they have been working now for the past several years to help streamline insurance processes, which again are very paper intensive around applications and claims. And verifications along the way to do that. And so again, using smart contracts that can self-execute can help automate a lot of the processes involved in insurance. Another area is in automotive. BMW is doing a lot of exciting things as well too, to be able to use the blockchain to record the history of a vehicle that can include the repair history, the ownership, whether insurance is involved. They have an application called Verify Car, which basically records the history and the life of the car as well. They're also using the blockchain in supply chain verification. So they're ensuring that their raw materials come from trusted countries and sources and ethical terms to be able to do that. And applications as well, including e-cars in terms of how to easily find the charging station that you need and seamlessly be able to pay for that transaction as well. And healthcare is another big area of potential benefits, and it's a market that is around data records. Is certainly patient data records is certainly a huge area of development that's going on, but also data breach is a big problem area. They're expected forecasting data breaches to cost over $100 billion annually in 2025. Pharmaceutical, counterfeit drugs, and to be able to trace drug counterfeit drugs as well, and patient record fraud. One of the areas that we always think about is social security numbers and bank account numbers on the black market. Those records go for about $25, where a patient record, medical record, goes for probably $1,000 as well. So it's a major area. And manufacturing, another example. SAP also has a suite of products under its Leonardo portfolio as well. And they have formed a consortium of 27 customers and partners with a total market value of over $800 billion to look at the use of blockchain to be able to audit and trace their goods in their manufacturing. In the retail sector, Salesforce has used its Hyperledger Sawtooth, which was a joint development between IBM and Intel, to be able to help payments and loyalty experience as well. Another area is in agriculture. Walmart is really creating a farm to plate promotion for ethical sourcing and consumption of its products, and has been working on this initiative for a number of years as well too, to be able to trace and track the food supply and ensure food safety. And as we talked about earlier, the gaming sector is really the one that's exploded over the last year or so. You got the League of Kingdoms, you got Axie Infinity, and a whole host of others as well that use the non-fungible tokens. And lastly, identity. Estonia has been described in Wire magazine as one of the most advanced digital societies in the world. And they've really taken the blockchain and leveraged the identity to really put online about 99% of their government services as well. And so they're a good example of where blockchain, the security and the trust can be built, is already built into the network, and can help automate that as well too. So before we close our discussion today, I want to talk about kind of three other key hot topic areas that you'll be hearing a lot more about. One area is called decentralized finance, or DeFi. And that's an area that's really going to be going underneath a significant fundamental change in the upcoming years. And again, think back to the model, the decentralized model. If you take a look at the traditional financial systems where you have a central hub, whether it be a bank or whether it be a country, in this new model, it's decentralized. And so you think about the DeFi as kind of being money Legos, and they're going to be able to build these systems that are going to have greater autonomy and ability to be able to execute. So that's an area that's going to be gaining a lot of interest in the upcoming years. And we touched on NFTs, non-fungible tokens. That's the difference. A non-fungible token is really just a unique token. So think about it as a trading card or an ownership of that. So it's as opposed to a one Bitcoin equaling one Bitcoin, one NFT doesn't equal one NFT. They're each unique and different. So it's easy to be able to record ownership of devices, whether it be CryptoKitties or whether it be digital moments in NBA Top Shot. There's a big opportunity there, and it's certainly been getting a lot of interest, but there's certainly more things to come. And the last big idea is really around decentralized autonomous organizations, or called DAOs. And this is another area, again, moving from the traditional centralized structure of an organization, kind of a top-down and committees. The DAO organization is really an autonomous organization that can automatically execute on its own based on a predefined set of rules and using smart contracts and agreements. And so that's really a big area of interest, and I bring that up because the developer Dapper Labs of CryptoKitties and NBA Top Shop is really taking some of the recent funding that they developed, and they're going to be launching a new business that's called Dapper Collectives, and it's going to be focusing specifically on how to create DAOs in the process. So I think hopefully you've got a clearer picture that blockchain is transforming everything and everywhere in the process, and hopefully you get a better understanding of some of the underlying capabilities and benefits of the technology as it's continuing to heat up and become a very exciting space. And if you can remember, just it's the transparency, security, and efficiency, and the trust that it brings to the network. So blockchain for now is real, it's here to stay, and it's in your future. So blockchain is hopefully, you understand a little bit now is really changing the world, and that your ideas today could be redefined by the blockchain tomorrow. And so I would like to leave you with this final quote, that curiosity leads you to places you don't expect to end up. So over the upcoming days, be curious and stay curious and enjoy the Congress. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Knutson. Now we're going to answer some questions from our participants. Okay. Let me read this from Carl John Vinas. What do you think are the greatest challenges in setting up a blockchain infrastructure in different use cases fields you have given? Are there reasons like budget, scalability, or lack of specializations in these fields?
Well, I think the technology itself is evolving to the various platforms, as you could see in each one of the cases that you have some of the standard commercial platforms, whether it be IBM and Hyperledger or other customizations to do that. To do it on a commercial scale is certainly a daunting task, and why you would want to go with an established platform that has the capability that's built into it. And so it's kind of a shared infrastructure from a public standpoint, but also there's private implementations as well on the various platforms. And so it's not something that you would go out and build yourself, kind of like the internet. It's really a feature and function that you want to be able to exploit in your applications.
Thank you for that, Mr. Knutson. Now from Daylon Kotamora. As a young student, where do we start using blockchain technologies? Question from Delion Kotomatora from La Verdad Christian College, Apalit.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. I think the part of the challenge from an educational perspective is it's a space that's evolving and moving very rapidly. And we actually conducted a workshop back in 2018 down in Bacolod, working with the local government and the universities down there to help establish at least a base level of education. And at the time, we leveraged some online classes and courses, and certainly that opportunity in marketplaces, even grown bigger. So there's traditional elements that you want to be able to include in your education, whether it be data structures, your basic programming skills as well, and cryptography, if that's an area of specialty and interest as well. So my best advice to get started is really go online. There's a lot of courses out there. A lot of them are free in terms of starting your education and starting your journey. It's one of the highest demanding positions right now, and in fact, in the developed markets,
you will keep hearing a lot. And so one is called TAM, or basically total available market. So let's say if you're talking about a restaurant business, or say bakery, like what we were talking about. So anyone who eats baked goods is the total available market. But then you go to the next level, what you call serviceable available market. So the serviceable market would be those people who likes to eat bakery goods, but who wants to also bake it themselves and have disposable money for it. Because if everyone wants to eat, but if they don't have money, then they're not your market, right? And then comes the last one, which you call SOM, or serviceable obtainable market, which is basically those that are within reach of your business. Like you can reach out to them and sell to them, and they can easily avail of the goods on a regular basis. So that's what you call SOM. So this is typically what you want to go by. And at this slide, I would want to also bring up one observation I have. You see, building a startup is really hard. It's really difficult. It takes long. It takes a lot of effort to do it. So when you do it, have a bigger ambition. Don't build a startup which is only good for a small TAM. So this old slide. probably more than $1 billion is an ideal TAM, or a market size that's big enough, so that if and when you are successful after working so hard on it, it has a potential to be sizable and perhaps global. But that's a good measure to see if what you're trying to address has a TAM of at least $1 billion. Now, now you may say, okay, Arup, so okay, fine, I have an idea, I want to go for it. How do you start? What is it? How do you get the first 10 customers? So going back to that same, the first is customer validation, right? Customer discovery. So discovery is when you go out and listen. So you identify a certain set of customer who has a pain. For example, they want to bake at home, but they can't, or it's very difficult to find all the ingredients easily. And second, you have to check if they're really trying to solve the problem, because some may say, yeah, actually it's a problem, but then you ask, okay, do you want me to solve it? And then, not really, I'm not really in, I don't have time to bake. So obviously then, while there may be a segment who bakes at times, maybe they have the problem, but they're not trying to solve it. um, so you need to also identify someone who is trying to solve it and probably is not successful in solving it well today. Maybe they're trying to do it through Lazada, and somehow it hasn't been a great experience. Maybe when they buy the ingredients are a lot or whatever, they will tell you that. So that listening part is the first part. Then the next part is validation, where you kind of, like in real estate, you pre-sell the idea. So you come back to those who said, yeah, I want it. And then you say, okay, here, can I supply this to you? If you are so interested, I can buy and send this to you, and you pay me. And if they say, yeah, okay, that sounds good, that's basically the validation. And then, only then, you start building something in terms of software. Now, a lot of time, a lot of startup, including some of us, we make the mistake of trying to build a product before even reaching out and asking all of those questions, right? So that's definitely not the right way to go about. You kind of do before you start building something to bring to them. The key point in this is just enough building. You don't build more than what is needed, right? Um, and lastly, enhance only what is in demand. Okay, I got a couple of more slides. And once you have started selling it to your first 10 or 15 customers, you are what you call, and these are the ones who will buy from you, are what we call the innovators and early adopters. So the innovators and early adopters are those who are, they're more open to things, experimenting and all. And a lot of startups actually find those 5, 10 initial customers, and that's easy. But that is just the start of the business or the problem. You do not have a real business till you get the stage 3, or what we call the early majority. Now, this early majority are more skeptical people. They don't just buy from anyone. And while they are interested in observing the innovators, early adopters, they hear out what's being talked about. They want some proof of execution. They want, that there is a set of happy customers before they actually want to buy. And a lot of startups do not survive jumping from the first 2 stage to the next stage. That's why it's called the chasm. And this is where, I don't know, about 60-70% or more of the startups really die. Once you get through the early majority, then comes the late majority. So these late majorities are the more skeptical, and they only come in a bit later. So I'll hold on to that, and let's try to identify how do you identify the early majority, right? So the early adopters as well as the early majority, how do you define them? So typically, this is where you need to actually have one small group who have the same problem and same need. And ideally, they talk to each other. Because remember, one of the most important stage here is referenceability, meaning the others, those late adopters as well as the early majority, should be able to look and find others who are using it. So you can use them as a reference because they're not going to buy something from a startup until you have a proof that it works and works well. So this is one of the biggest learning I had, and this is the hardest discussion I have with startups when I'm talking to them. At this stage, while moving from the early adopters to early majority, it's a counterintuitive step of going small. So you go big, or you grow the business to big by going small first. So at this stage, you try to identify a really small niche segment of the market where you can go in and you can create an early impact where there is not too many competition, right? So you need to get out of the bigger area, and while your goals and ambitions and the TAM and SOM we talked about, Sam, would be there and you will grow to that, but you need to start with something small that you can win and be the referenceable market leader first. Okay, last couple of slides. So one of the thing, and OPM is a popular term in the Silicon Valley language, which basically means not the songs, but the other people's money. So at this stage, some of you might say, but Arup, I probably don't have that kind of money, right? I mean, how do I do startup? So the point of startup is typically you should have a goal of building your startup with other people's money. And it's not so much about being selfish or anything, but it's actually a very good validation tool because, more you talk to people about your idea and get money out of them, you are getting good criticism, which validates your product, as well as you're getting champions for your business who will actually also help you get customers. So these are the four, there are more stages, but these are the four big stages. Pre-seed, you can start with friends and family, angel investor, tech incubators. The next stage is when you call it the seed funding, where you already build the product, trying to scale and grow it. So that's where you have the accelerators, angels, seed funds. And then stage 3 is where you go to the VCs. A lot of time mistake startups do is they are kind of at an early stage of the idea and they start trying to talk to VCs, and that can be a lot of waste of time. Though, in the startup world, nothing is absolute. Sometime maybe it will work talking to a VC and he will fund you right from the pre-seed, but typically this is the sequence. And lastly, once it's all doing great, your dream is to basically list the company on a stock exchange. Now, I want to show you this slide. This is the second to last slide, which talks about this huge ecosystem that has grown in Philippines, and all of this are there to support you. These are the people who will fund you and support you, and this is all existing in our Philippines ecosystem. You can reach out to any of them depending on the right fit at where you are, and you can get support, funding, etc. So it's a evolving and has become quite a good ecosystem. And if you are doing your startup, they can definitely help. These are the 3 books that I would recommend. I have shared the slides, and the organizers might be able to share that with you, so you can go back to them, look at them. But if you're doing startup and maybe you like reading or you don't, I do encourage you to at least spend time in reading these 3 books, which will help you a lot of money and heartaches down the line. And that's about all I have here. Went about the time a little bit. But I would like to end by saying, today is the best time to get started. If you want to do a startup, don't delay, don't wait. As soon as you graduate,